In this video, I'm going to transform this boring space with no storage potential and turn it into this. Let's get into how I did it here. First step, we need to get all of our materials. You want to get your stuff from your local hardwood supplier, not your local Home Depot. They don't even have this stuff. We are using beech wood for this whole project. I am making cabinets, floating shelves, and a fireplace mantle. My floating shelves are all made from this 3/4 inch plywood that has a beech veneered onto the top and bottom layer of it. My cabinets are getting this simple birch plywood that is also 3/4 of an inch thick on all the sides, within a 1/2 inch backer on it. I use a 1/2 inch backer just to make the whole cabinet a little bit lighter. Some people use 1/4 inch plywood, but I don't like how weak and scrawny 1/4 inch plywood is. Here I am building the box. I like to put my back on first and then overcut it and snip it to length later. I like to have my sides run up through the top, and then I have the top not fully made because I'm going to put a countertop on top of it. Doesn't need to be there. I screw in everything and staple all my connections together. This is all pre-lacquered material, so I don't need to worry about finishing the box. Next step is I get my planer out to build all of the face frames for this project. Fun tip, if your planer ever is having issues, your rollers might be dirty, wipe them down with some mineral oil, and you'll be surprised at how incredible it feeds your materials. Next step is I'm pocket jointing all of my face frames materials, keeping track of what needs to be pocketed and what doesn't. It's a face frame, it's all getting attached to the cabinets, and I glue all my joints. So pocket screws are a perfect application for face frames. There's no better way to do it. Here I am getting it all glued together and putting into place. I give it a little test fit just to make sure it's going to match up with this box well.
Let's build a floating shelf.
With that hard transition, we got our 3/4 inch beech plywood out and ready. I have 2.5 inch spacers out of scrap material. I am gluing and Craig screwing down to the surface. I drill out 3 holes for some future lights that are going to go into all of these, and then I Craig screw the top piece on with glue as well. In the morning, I'm going to come around and put on the faces on all these. When making this glue transition here, it's very important to make sure glue's over every square inch to get proper hold and so you don't have any cracks. This is 3/4 inch beech wood, hardwood. I am clamping it down and I'm going to wait for that glue to dry, and I'm leaving the edge proud of the plywood. I'm going to come back later with a flush trim bit and clean it up. While that's all drying, we're actually going to get into making all the doors for this project. I have all my rough material on my table, going to cut it and get it stacked here, and watch this magic work. I'm going to snap my fingers and whoa, it was all done. Where'd this pile of wood come from? That was a great transition. Man, I'm good at this. I'm going to cut my tenons in all of the door rails here. I cut them all on each side using my table saw sled, and then I go ahead and make this very dicey cut here to finish off the tenon. Now that all these tenons are cut, I simply set up my table saw that I did not record to make the groove. I just ran these boards a couple times through, clearing out that transition there. With all that done, I did that to also my stiles as well, and now I'm giving it a quick dry fit, making sure it works. With that in place, I just ripped together some 1/4 inch beech plywood and gluing it all together here. It's important not to glue the actual plywood to your rails because your plywood could expand or shrink a little bit, causing a crack to happen in the outer perimeter of your door. Up next is our fireplace mantelpiece. I am ripping a 45-degree angle in this board that's going to be the very face and sides of the fireplace. As I build this fireplace mantle, it's going to be hollow on the inside, and the edges are going to have the grain wrap around itself. I am actually making that cut right now, straight with my miter saw, and I'm doing it very carefully to keep these two pieces as perfect as possible. I needed to cut it with the miter saw going straight down because it is a smaller joint. I am using hardwood for this and not plywood because of these 45-degree angle miters. I like the idea that I can take as much material out as I need to without you theoretically seeing the inside of the plywood edge. Because it's hardwood, I have no worries of that. I'll be able to put a 1/2 inch round over this if I ever needed to in the future, or if the client wanted to. We're going to be gluing together all of these joints. We want to make sure we get a lot of glue in there and then we have proper squeeze out everywhere. And now I'm going to get my clamps put on all these blocks. I put on with CA glue, and I'm going to inspect all my miter joints. That's why I didn't tape every square bit of it. That way I can actually see how my wood's lining up, and I really like how it's looking. There's no air gaps or anything. Once that's looking good, I take my end caps that are cut just perfectly to wedge in there. And now we let this thing dry overnight, and then we can rip everything off in the morning. Oh, and this is my cute little boy. He's adorable. I love having a little shop helper in the morning. It's sticky. Yeah, it is. On to the next day here. Now that my floating shelves are nice and dry, I take my flush router trim bit and I go over it a couple of times, and now I'm giving it a good quick sand, and I love this transition. I did not want a 45-degree miter joint on here because I wanted the floating shelf to have very good proud edges that were very strong. I feel like 45-degree edges can be a little weak for doing shelving because all the stuff you're putting on. That was the last bit. Everything else is ready for finishing. So I'm using Rubio Monocoat. It is a 2-part hard wax oil finish, and it's really easy to put on. You just mix up the 2 parts in a cup and then start spreading around with a little squeegee, and then you wipe off every last little bit of residue on there that you can. And then this stuff dries really quick as well, which I love. I have not used this product too often, but everyone on YouTube loves using it, so I'm giving it a shot, and so far I have no complaints. Here we are in the house. We are ready for install day. I got this really new plastic wall with these poles. You build it real quick and easy, and it holds that plastic tight. It's not going anywhere. While ripping out this mantelpiece, I'm trying not to hurt the drywall as much as I can. Also, as I'm ripping this off, I was really hoping this drywall corner bead went all the way to the ground, and to my surprise, it did. That saved me a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie. Well, I mean, not that much work, but it definitely saved me an annoying drywall bead to do. On the left side cabinet here, I removed all the carpet underneath my cabinet, so my toe kick sits firmly onto the subfloor, and I reinstalled the tack strip so the carpet can be properly tucked. I'm using a couple screws into studs to set my toe kick, using my laser level, which is super nice and OP. Using a jigsaw, cutting into the back of the cabinet. You can plunge cut with a jigsaw, how I just did there. It's a little sketchy, you have to have a skilled hand, but if you can pull it off, it saves you a couple minutes from drilling out a hole. Cabinet fits great. We're seeing if the face frame fits good, and it does. I didn't put the face frame on the cabinet yet because I wanted to be able to cut the face frame if need be on site without having the box to worry about. Everything's installed, looking great. My outlets were nailed perfectly. I didn't really get any purposeful video of it though. This is a French cleat for my mantle. That's how I'm installing this. That way there's no screws or anything you can see from the outside edge. Getting it tacked up on the wall, and then I'm going to make a scribe line to cut that off later. We're doing some drywall here. I'm just getting these sheets tacked in. I put a lot more screws into this drywall sheet once it was all said and done, and I get a first coat of mud on that. Into our floating shelves, I have more 2.5 inch spacers. Again, I'm screwing into all of my studs. I mark out where all my studs are, and I pre-drill and screw in a 2.25 inch screw. The ideal screw size is you want it to go in 1 inch into solid wood. Wedging in this floating shelf here, it could have been a tad bit smaller, but unfortunately with this job, the walls were not very square, which is pretty typical, but they're not square in the not so good way. The outside edge of that corner was very much a smaller distance than the back wall, so I had to make it really tight going in, but once it got in, then it was good. I got all my LED lights hooked up with dimmers switch, and now we're putting the mantle back into place, and it seats perfectly. I did rip that scribe mark I had made off camera. I like my mantle sitting out of level just a little bit because over time it is going to sag. It's going to squish the drywall underneath it. Back to the shop yet again, using my flush trim bit to clean up this countertop edge and using an 1/8 inch bit to make a nice rounded over edge. I gave these a quick paint in another video, going into a lot more depth of it. I'm also back in here finishing all of my doors with more Rubio Monocoat. I'm a little torn if it's better to lacquer these doors or to use Rubio Monocoat. Rubio Monocoat is 1 coat and done. Lacquering it is 3 coats with spray. I don't really know what's faster. I do know Rubio Monocoat dries a lot quicker, so I think I like it. Here's a fancy little hinge hole thing I got off of Amazon. I'm not a fan of it. I would not recommend buying it. I'm gonna get something totally different next time. Back at the job site again, getting these countertops installed and getting all my doors in. And things are coming together slowly but surely. I talked with the homeowner, seeing exactly where she'd like these handles, and she wants them tight up against there. I get out my wonderful little jig I got off of Amazon. This thing is worth every penny. I will never drill another set of doors without this thing for the handles because it makes it so foolproof, and even a 5-year-old could use this thing and not screw it up. Well, I guess that's not too true because I did see a 20-year-old kind of jack up the system, but that's another story for another day. All the handles are on. My countertops are nicely caulked to the wall, and now we're gonna get ready here for tile work. You want to make sure you're putting mud down onto Wonderboard. This Wonderboard was painted when they built the house. You want to lather the back of your tile so that way you get proper adhesion on. I put tape on my carpet to protect all the edges, and I'm using an 1/8 inch spacer everywhere. So on the bottom of my tile to be there to the floor is 31 1/4. So I've set it up right here. I've got that flush. And so then from there down is 31 1/4. Went ahead and got that edge cut and also polished back. The floor is setting up nicely. And then I got this little cute bridge set up here so I could shim off of it so my top tiles wouldn't sag down at all. I got this as tight as I possibly could get it to the wall there so I have minimal amounts of caulking. I went ahead and then put my standard blue tape on to caulk all my edges. That just creates such crisp lines everywhere. It's foolproof. We also do the same treatment up at the walls. I got caulking on there, wait for the caulking to dry, and then I take some wall paint to paint it so it all matches exactly perfect. And then I rip off the tape immediately, and that creates this just gorgeous line. I like these lines. And that's finishing the project. I pull up my carpet tape, and now we get a look at all the beautiful work here. You see that wood grain wrapping around the edge there? It's like it's one piece of wood. I like that fun detail. The fireplace looks super clean. All those lines are very crisp, and the edge is nice and polished all around it. We have our countertop with a very minimal look, just being up nice tight to the wall with no gaps. And all these lights are working wonderful here. I also have a Smurf tube installed in this bottom cabinet, so that way they can take any future HDMI cables or sound cords and slip them up to behind the TV. So behind that plate is a 1-inch tube that sticks out to another outlet box behind the TV so they can get wires in. These lights are nice and dimmable. They go down to a very low setting. I actually had another set in here the homeowner did not like. They were too bright, so she provided these ones and I swapped them out. No cost to her, and she's very happy with these new ones. They get down to a much dimmer setting. If you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to say thank you very much, and please consider subscribing to my channel. I make videos about my own small construction business. I started in 2025. I've got 10 years experience of building homes. I come from a family of builders. I like sharing tips and tricks. Thanks for watching.